Radioactive reporting. What's in the news? Friday's wrap up. For months now, I haven't spoken much about it, but what's going on out there? There is a noted study, should be very well noted, should be brought up and mentioned in more than a few places, done over by somewhere overseas though, so it's kind of a globalist study, so be cautious of that. But it was a study by science, using probably engineers and doctors and people that are way overtrained. But the study said, the study implied, the study showed maybe the waste from these new small modular reactors might be 6 to 10 times more than the waste from the big monstrosities we've already created. Even doubling the amount of nuclear waste. So that study should be noted, should be mentioned, should be talked about. I saw a news report about an unsung hero of nuclear power that's been ignored, called a fast breeder reactor. The reason fast breeder reactors are ignored, not done, not built, are for engineering and technical reasons. Many of those are environmental. The controls for these materials, for the air that comes out of these materials, the waters, the liquids, even the solids, which are the fuels, should be understood and accounted for within conversations and not ignored. That thing called alpha, beta, and gamma radioactivity should be a part of the conversation, not ignored. In a search for true-false questions, there is something called the null set. Those are things you agreed just weren't in the true or false decision. And I'm calling bullshit on the null set. So, what else is going on? Small modular reactors, I mentioned, creating possibly 6 to 10 times more waste than the larger reactors we suffer today. Besides the risks of terrorists, which we know there are terrorists on this planet, right? You have an idea, you have a clue now. Shit, they're among us at this point. We've tried to normalize these whack jobs with guns, but nuclear stories. So I saw that story pop up and I was like, did they even read? Do they do history? Do they do science? Do they do research? None of these people, none of these articles mention the history of these things. Small modular reactors were tried and managed by, what was our government organization that did and installed those things in a couple of places? Army Corps of Engineers. They at one point were responsible for small modular reactors and tried to deploy them. You can go find that history if you actually dig and look for it, but it's not going to come up in front of you. And they were failures. The reasons they were failures are documented and written, and we stopped trying to do those things. Possibly because it was a bad idea, possibly because it was too risky, possibly because it was too expensive, possibly. So, other nuclear stories. Nuclear engines for ships. Right, there's infinite seawater out there. Don't have to worry about cooling them. Don't have to worry about docking next to a nuclear source in your docks, in your marinas, right? All you boat lovers. What's a nuclear weapon among friends? But this isn't a nuclear weapon because those are guarded. Those are managed, measured, and well monitored. These are just random nuclear potentials out there amongst us. But the deep problem with all of this is no one's talking to the waste. There's nowhere to put it. Somehow Mr. Biden, the current president, has accepted this thing called interim waste. And in between all the noise out there, these interim wasters are going around to towns and communities and saying, hey, we're just going to store this in your backyard for 10 or 20 years. We're going to create a dozen really good-paying jobs. We're not going to protect the neighborhood. We're not going to monitor. We're not going to teach them in public classrooms about what this stuff is, what it can do, and the risks. It was atomic veterans. That sample size. Go find that sample size. Learn of what they're worried about. Or uranium mining and the Indians that were forced to put a uranium mine on their lands and later regretted it. But at least they learned, let somebody else go in the mines, because that causes at least lung cancers. Just a fact. It's evident. You have a chance. It's not a true or false statement. It's a goddamn maybe. So peace is out.